See, our mayor is not here tonight. He's out sick. I've talked to him. He's getting stronger, and we hope that he'll be here at the next meeting. Over the weekend, on Friday night, we had something that shocked me and really shook the neighborhood. A young 9-year-old girl was killed, and her mother was seriously wounded. She's in the Pitt Memorial Hospital now in intensive care, and they say it's touch and go. I'm still touched by it, but our community, our town, and our county, we need to have a safe haven not only for our youth but for adults too. This type of activity has no place here in Edenton. And if there is anyone out there that knows of anyone or someone that has committed this crime, please get in contact with the police department, the sheriff department, or anybody. Let them know so we can bring these people to court and get them out of our community. It's really heartbreaking. My heart goes out for Ralph and Liza with a granddaughter lost and a daughter in serious care. I'm going to ask Pastor Poole to give us a prayer.
Let us stand. Our Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we bow our heads in prayer tonight. Lord, to thank you for blessing us. Lord, to cry out to you, have mercy in Jesus' name. Lord, we are sad because we have lost life. And we have families that's seriously wounded. Lord, we know that you know all things, but we ask that you will have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy upon the family. Lord, that they may be able to stand the trouble that they're going through. Lord, Father, we pray that the mother will be healed and come back home. And Lord, we pray for our community. This doesn't have to happen. But Lord, we know that the devil is busy. He's busy trying to hurt people, to destroy their lives, destroy their families, and destroy their way of living. But Lord, you know all things. You're a healer. You're a way maker. You can do anything but fail. And we cry out to you, have mercy. Lord, we pray for our mayor, heal him, that he may come back to his seat. And Lord, Father, we pray for the community. Help us to be one. Help us to grow. Help us to have faith that you're our keeper. Protect us from the wiles of the devil. We ask these and all other blessings in the precious name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Poole, for this touching prayer. First is a special meeting agenda and the presentation on a successful media familiarization tour the town hosted back in 2019, May of 2019. We welcome Craig DeSteele and Leah Huge via satellite. Oh, I started to call you boss later, but Anne Marie, would you take the lead for us, please?
Sure.
And give us some background on it.
I'm happy to, Mayor Pro Tem, and it's great to see Leah and Craig again, and I think Nancy Nichols, our tourism director, is on the line. And we have several members of our Tourism Development Authority on the call, as well as Teresa Thaser is here in person with us. And Craig and Leah are here to present the report to you of the successful media mission, the media tour that was held back in May 2019. And you recall that as part of the town's strategic communication plan, it was recommended that the town work with experts who would recruit and invite writers and bloggers to spend a long weekend with Edenton and be immersed into all of the wonderful things that visitors can do and participate in when they come to visit. And it was a jam-packed 3 days. We included in your packet this weekend the itinerary, and you can see there was hardly any downtime. And then after the weekend, articles started being written and published and blogs, and it just was amazing. Everything that we possibly could hope for and more in terms of the coverage that the 9 writers provided for us. And so I'll turn it over at this point to Craig and Leah and ask them to give you their report and their summary of the effort. You are. We can hear you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity. I sit down and practice with my colleague Lee and you this year, and we're going to go for that, so maybe we can use the end as well. The idea for the media tour is simply to take some of the budget from the TDA that maybe would normally go toward advertising, and instead get it extended storage across multiple platforms. So it becomes more effective because instead of telling people how great you are in an ad, you're showing people how great you are via the main stories that get generated. These create extra validity because the stories come from journalists providing that legitimacy of an independent third-party verification that you don't get from advertising. So Leah and I, this was a multi-month process. We visited in November of 2018 to meet with Anne Marie and Nancy and to determine the storylines and the places that we would visit on the tour. And we put our heads together and came up with the theme, Edenton, the prettiest town in the South. And the accompanying theme was Edenton's Women of Distinction, from Penelope Barker and Harriet Jacobs back in the day, all the way to modern day leaders like Anne Marie, Nancy, and Jennifer Harris. We also featured several women-owned businesses on the itinerary, including Amy Robertson, Candace Thompson, Jacqueline Hardy Bond, Cheryl Moore, and April Lady. We distributed invites in December of 2018 to an A-list of more than 50 journalists in our targeted regions, and the goal was to fill 8 spots. We always hope to fill the tour with our first wave of invitees, and that was the case. We were very pleased. Did RSVPs and fill the 8 spots. We actually had somebody come from Alexandria, Virginia. Alexandria Living Magazine was somebody that Nancy Nichols had met with in a previous media mission, so we felt that was a good placement. So we went to Nancy, and she actually extended the occupancy or the availability to 9 journalists. So we had journalists from Atlanta, Chapel Hill, Charlotte, Greensboro, Greenville, North Carolina, Raleigh, and Alexandria. As Anne Marie said, the tour itself went flawlessly, and it was really a total team effort. The Hampton Inn was a great base camp for us. Nancy and Anne Marie were wonderful hosts. Mark and Teresa were an outstanding part of it, as was Sharon Keeter on the trolley. Mayor Vaughn and his wife had dinner with us the final night and presented all the media people with the coffee table book of Tim Shaw's beautiful So that kind of gives you an idea of what the event was about, and I'm going to turn it over to Leah, and she's going to show you the results of all of the hard work.
I'm going to need to share my screen, Anne-Marie, for our PowerPoint.
Okay? We practiced this earlier today, so hopefully you can
Okay.
replicate it. Leah, are you able to access your screen?
It looks like I am. Thank you.
Okay.
Try this out. Can you all see it?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, we'll start in just what Craig said. In addition to his great description, we will go, they took a little video, I believe Anne-Marie and Nancy were in on this, and put it together, just some highlights of that fun-filled 4 days we had in Edenton. And I told Craig as I was going through photos and stories and putting the presentation together, it made me want to come back. So I hope we're able to come back in really soon. So I think this will give you a little sense of the atmosphere that we had during the tour, and then we'll go into the media placements themselves. So I hope that gave you guys just a little video recap of what happened during those 4 days. It was a wonderful time, beautiful weather, and all the folks in Edenton couldn't have been a better host for those journalists that we had along. So after we ended the tour, several placements started rolling in, and they have ever since for over the past year. And I'll share a few of those with you guys, and you can see Edenton in the spotlight. I'll start with Sparks Magazine. That came out in the Sunday edition of the Winston-Salem Journal. So this was inserted into the newspaper as a full-color piece, and they did a 7-page feature on Edenton. Again, with some of Kip Shaw's beautiful photography, I had that same thought that Craig had about highlighting that. We always stress to our clients how valuable good photography is to either get the story or not get it, or sometimes catch an eye or not catch an eye, and thankfully Nancy sees the value in that, and we had some beautiful photography that really made a difference. So Spark did 2 stories, actually 3 stories, one a general highlight of Edenton, one on folks who may already came to Edenton to have a second career, sort of like the Liberty, and then another one was on the female AAA Go magazine is distributed to AAA members in North and South Carolina. Likely some of you received this publication. It has a circulation of 1.3 million, which is quite impressive. And what's great about this audience is that they're travelers. You know, if they're members of AAA and they see the value of travel, they're out hitting the road. And this was a freelance journalist that we hosted on this tour. And so she was able to pitch Edenton to AAA Go, and she's still pitching Edenton. That's the beauty of working with freelancers. You know, they work with multiple publications. So the placement of this story was really great, we think, because, and we've talked about it with Nancy, with the situation that's going on right now with COVID-19, the small towns in North Carolina that are drivable, we think are going to be really appealing as folks start to get back out and travel. You know, they're not getting on those international flights. And so the small, friendly towns where they can take a road trip from urban areas in North Carolina are going to look really appealing. So hopefully this landed and put Edenton on the radar of some folks who are unfamiliar with it. And so they saved this story for planning future travel. Carolina Country Magazine, many of you likely received this if you get your electricity from a co-op in North Carolina. It has a circulation of about 700,000. It goes to the households of the electric co-ops, lands right in the mailbox. And they sent an editor on the tour, and we worked with her for years. She's very professional, great. And the thing about that is, when they send an editor that's on full-time staff at a publication, they're not just looking for a specific story, they're looking for background knowledge and just having that update of Edenton, so anytime story ideas come up that Edenton might be a fit, Renee Gannon can say, oh hey, I've been there, I think we should plug Edenton into that story. So 3 articles came out of that one person on the tour. Like Along the Water here, Edenton was mentioned along with the photos. Then they did a retirement feature about great places in North Carolina to retire. Of course, Edenton was a good fit. And then not shown on this page, but they did a story with women's history, and of course, Edenton factored into that as well. So, 919 magazine is distributed to several affluent zip codes in the Raleigh area. And we had their editor, Susie Sarver, on the tour. And Susie's just a ball of enthusiasm. It's always great to have those folks along with you, just to keep the energy up on the tour. And in addition to that, she did a 6-page feature on 919 magazine, plus the cover. And she even used the title of our media tour, Prettiest Little Town in the South, as her headline for the story. So that was a nice bonus. But, you know, as you know, Raleigh's a great placement for travelers, 2.5 hours, whether they're coming straight to Edenton for a weekend getaway, or they're heading over to the Outer Banks and want to spend some time in Edenton, a night or two on their way or on their way back. That's just a really great fit. And in that same vein, Durham and Chapel Hill magazines, also in the Triangle, they are sister publications of Shannon Media. And they sent one of their editors along, and they do a getaway piece about every 6 months, so that was great to be able to snag one of those. And this story ran in both their Durham publication and their Chapel Hill publication just this past spring, and again made use of that beautiful photography. I mean, who wouldn't want to walk down that boardwalk right there? And so that publication ran in both of those Triangle locations. Alexandria Living, as Craig mentioned, we had a writer come down to represent that magazine, and they did a 3-page feature. It's the DC area, and another great location. And she did something pretty neat. She actually took the Amtrak down, and Craig and I picked her up in Rocky Mount on our way over, and you see this yellow box on the screen. She actually presented that as an option for folks, and mentioned the logistics through. But some of the stories were done exclusively for blogs or for websites, and one of those is Eat, Move, Make. The creator of that was along with us. She is from Eastern North Carolina, and she did 2 stories on her website, one on shopping and one on bed and breakfast. And that is targeted to a woman readership, female readership, and so that was a very good fit for her. And another one of those digital placements, we had a freelance writer from Atlanta, and she has a kind of a digital focus, digital footprint, and she came out with a story on sheswonderful.com in addition to a couple of other websites. And so that was a beautiful visual there, and on this website targeted toward women travelers. And one of the great things about these online placements is, as you guys know, social media is so important these days. And so these digital writers, they often have a great skill set as far as social media, and they have a great following. And so they're sharing these stories on social media. They're tagging Nancy so she's able to share them from the Edenton channel. And as you know, as the story gets shared and shared, folks add their little personal recommendations of, I've been to Edenton, it's wonderful, you should go. So in addition to the story itself and the journalists who were there, as the story branches out and is shared, you get to hear more of just those personal testimonies of heading to Edenton. So I'm going to turn it back over to Craig now. He's going to give a little insight of what all those stories added up to numbers-wise.
Thank you, Leah. That was a great job. Just here's some of the numbers. As we mentioned, there were 9 journalists that attended, and they produced 17 stories so far. And actually, I think another story just came out today on AAA about kayaking. One of the writers who was on there did a story about the kayaking in Carolina. So we're going to probably add that number up and be 18. The print circulation of all the stories is almost 4 million. And the direct advertising value of those stories is $242,919. And then the PR value, which is the metric that VisitNC uses, is you take the ad value and you multiply it times 3. So the total PR value at this point is almost $750,000 and rising. So we do have a complete report that we could email to Anne Marie, and she can share with the council if anybody'd like to, if you'd like to see the entire report. So I think that's pretty much it for us. We're happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I see that this was done in May of 19. Is this going to be something that we do every 2 or 3 years to our benefit, or what do Craig and Leah say? Is this going to be an ongoing project for us?
Can you all, Nancy and Leah and Craig, give us your recommendation?
Sure.
How often would you recommend that either the town or the TDA look to do another mission like this? And in light of COVID, should we accelerate our plan?
Well, right now, pretty much there are very few places that are hosting media tours right now in light of COVID. So generally for a town like the size of Edenton, maybe you'd want to host it every other year, do a tour, and so we could see how things look next year and be a good time for the following year. And in addition, we can work individually with journalists to host them. They come on their own and do sort of a self-guided itinerary, and there are other ways we can outreach with journalists. But all things being considered, if it's normal time, you probably want to do one every 2 years.
And our goal, from the strategic communications plan is to grow back our population, to recover the population that we've lost really since the Great Recession. And I can tell you, before COVID, I met a handful of people, new residents to the town and to the county, and I know Mark and Teresa can attest to it, who said, you know, they came to Edenton, they read the Our State magazine, they read the 919 magazine. They came, they visited, and they fell in love with the town and have, you know, moved here or are going to buy property here. So, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Get them here, get them to visit, get them to meet people in the community, and then invest here. So I think it's been a good success, and hopefully the council will want to continue to invest in it.
Every year and a half, every year, every 2 years.
I don't think we've ever done anything that's been as successful as this. I mean, it's amazing. I think Hack and I have seen people closing on houses. A lot of them have come from these publications. I think we need to make sure we keep fresh photo stock. I think that's keep Kip or whoever taking pictures, keep taking pictures.
I like that they discuss the current life here and also other journalists really hit the history, which I thought was interesting too.
Nancy, did you have any comments for us?
Am I muted or unmuted?
We hear you. We can hear you. Oh, she's just a show. Yeah. No, she's muted. She muted herself.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes, thank you so much for working with us, county council, the council, everybody. And Craig and Leah are wonderful to work with. And actually, what Craig is saying is true. We're still getting articles and getting writers that are inquiring about coming to visit because of what they've seen already published. So this is something that every few years it is necessary to do, and we love doing it and hosting journalists, and we love working with Craig and Leah because it makes a big difference when we get to do that. So cooperatively within our community, when we work together, we're able to do so much more, and we appreciate the support and the working together.
Okay. Any more?
I have a question for Nancy.
Go ahead.
Nancy, can you hear me? Do we have a way of measuring the number of people who come through town each month as tourists? Is there some way of measuring that population?
The number of visitors?
The number who might come through each month as tourists?
The only people that really track visitors are the ones that are coming into the Welcome Center at the Penelope Barker House,
Okay.
or to the Visitor Center at Historic Edenton. So unless people go into one of those two places, they're not really tracked. So it's hard to say, because a lot of people come here and spend a day or two and may not even go into either one of those. So it's, with them, when they're tracking, it's normally around 25,000. But we know that we have a lot more that come in than that. And we can tell by occupancy as well that our numbers for occupancy have increased. So more and more visitors are coming to the area. And a lot of it is because of the marketing and promoting that we're able to do cooperatively. So we appreciate the support that we're all doing together.
Thank you.
Any more? I would like to thank Craig and Leah and Nancy and the TDA for promoting Edenton as a special place to live. Thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to continue to do work with y'all. Okay.
It's our pleasure.
All right. Next on the agenda is an award bid for the new bulkhead on Queen Anne Creek, an improvement to a 48-inch gravity outfall storm sewer discharge pipe. And Marie and Corey will give us some information on that.
Okay. And I don't know if Corey can join us from the overflow room, if you want to come into the council room. Thank you, Corey. So we are, you can go to the podium. There he is. Hey, Corey.
Hey.
Hi. So that was perfect. We are excited to be presenting this recommendation for bid award to you tonight. It's been a long process. I think we started working on this in 2000 and
Early 18.
18, but based on some engineering studies that we had done after Hurricane Matthew in 2016. So when Corey came on board, the recommendation at that time was to install a new bulkhead along the town's park on Queen Anne Creek. And I'll let Corey kind of talk about the project and how that's also tied into some improvements that we're going to make to the stormwater system. So, Corey.
All right. So the project did originally start just trying to identify the area along the curb on East Water Street, and we knew that we needed some improvements there as far as our bulkhead because of what the street flooding that we had seen in that area. Well, that was really kind of a two-part problem. One being from storm surge that we would see from the bay based on how the wind influenced the tidal system, and then we also had an additional part of that where when that happened and we had a rain event, you kind of had the, no pun intended, the perfect storm, because the stormwater system couldn't drain properly, and what was there was also holding in that 72 acres that pump station pumps out. So in order to try to remedy this, we really did a lot of on-site investigation, and that's when we determined that the pump station is working properly, that the emergency overflow for that system is what had been compromised. And so when we talk about just doing the bulkhead replacement, that's perfectly fine between the edge of the town property closest to the Elliots towards Hayes. That would work. That would work well and really stop what we see coming in from the creek when it makes its way towards East Water Street. The second half of that is this 48-inch gravity line that's kind of the emergency. Hey, the pump station is at maximum capacity. We need to really do something to purge this system, and that's what that line's designed to do. So that small section between Hayes and Elizabeth Van Moore Park, handrail, kind of where that kayak launch is, that's really your hot spot. And so if we only had to replace the bulkhead from Hayes towards the Elliots, towards the curve on South Oakham, we'd be talking about a much smaller project. That'd be fairly simple. The problem is where that 48-inch line's at. And so the bids that we received were for both parts of that, not only the bulkhead installation, but the 48-inch line, gravity line restoration. So that's what we're proposing tonight, and I guess if anyone has any questions about the two parts of this project, we can go into detail about any of those.
Corey, I've got a question. Does this address the standing water problem that we have there at the curve of Water Street and Oakham Street that we've seen recently?
So what we have at the East Water Street curve that you're talking about, we are working with the Wooten Company as well as myself and some of my supervisors. We do want to consider that as part of a change order that we would like to add to that pump station. At least get it back on town property. I do think we'll be able to address that problem during this time. That area will be excavated. There will be a lot of moving parts that we'll be trying to correct and address, and that is one that we would like to include on the back side of this project. Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
the hurricane force winds of Category 2, we're still going to get water down there, correct? I mean, it's going to be better.
I don't remember the exact year, whether it was a 50-year storm or a 100-year storm or a 200-year storm, what the design elevation was for the bulkhead. I'll have to give you some type of follow-up as far as what that was, but the height is based off of the same elevation that we have along the concrete breakwater that's at EVM Park. So the height that we see there is similar to what we will see when the bulkhead is installed. And I guess in the 3 years of being here, most of the storms that we've had, the bulkhead would have prevented that storm surge from crossing in that navigable water onto land.
And just to sort of follow up on what Hack said, because I had a constituent call me today about it, that water that's running across the street at Oakham says it's going to take care of that. Is that?
Not, well, what we're planning on doing, this is kind of step one with the bulkhead and the 48-inch line restoration. But we do have plans to reactivate that line, whether we choose to do that closer to the town property where the two large live oaks that are there that are in the curve, whether we feed that into the bay, or there is an option that we're looking at directing it into the gravity line that leaves the pump station. So we really have two options. It all depends on what the grading is there to allow that to drain. But we do plan to include that on the back side as a change order for this project.
And then that'll end that trickle
Yes.
through the street or whatever that is.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Can I just ask Corey, because it's been really confusing to us to figure out why that stormwater problem emerged right after Chris Elliott and Mary put in their bulkhead, and we had to do a lot of troubleshooting to try to figure out what happened, and we thought we had engineered a solution, but then mysteriously the last 2 or 3 weeks, all of a sudden there have been days when it has been dry. And I called Corey, I said, Corey, what is going on here? Because they had made a major repair on Court and Eden Street, and I thought maybe it was connected to that, and so they did more troubleshooting. And anyway, we think we know what it is, but the I&I contractor, the $1 million sewer rehab work that's ongoing, their next mobilization is going to be at the intersection of King
In South Oak.
and South Oakham.
Yeah.
They're going to be opening up the street, making some repairs there, and that's kind of like the final piece of the puzzle where we want to look and see if something is disconnected or clogged there that would be causing the problem. So we will fix it. It's just, there's so much infrastructure going on right there.
Yeah,
We wanted-
and to kind of chime in on that, you know, Public Works as a whole has explored every option that we have. We were actually on site during the installation of the Elliott's bulkhead that was there. We were actually working with the contractor to try to help minimize any impact that we had. And we also have troubleshot the area. I mean, we've dug up the property to identify what is there, because it's just one of those mysteries. So we're at the point where the last option that we have, kind of working through the logic of what could be adding to the problem, is us literally cutting the asphalt at the intersection of King and South Oakham to see if there's something that is not purposely contributing to that problem. I did speak with some of the homeowners today in that area to try to give them an update of this is where we are in the phase of something that Public Works can do in-house to make the repairs.
You mentioned, Corey, the rising level of the bay. Any idea how fast that's rising or how much is coming up?
I do not know. I know that within the last 3 years, we did meet with the National Weather Service in the county to do some investigations for our nuisance flooding in certain hot spots in town and with the county. I don't remember the exact number, but there had been a slight increase where they thought they had actually had an equipment malfunction because it had been consistently higher over a certain time period. I don't remember exactly what those numbers were, but that was actually from the weather station that we have at Sunfish Park. I'm thinking 6 to 8 inches higher over the period of a year and a half, but I'm not sure if that's the exact numbers. But as far as the slope of what we're looking at, or I guess, how fast it's rising, or if it's steady, or if it's exponential, I don't know those numbers.
Any more questions?
Mayor, if I would just add to that, another huge benefit, motivating factor is we are going to have such an improved fishing area for the public. The area of Queen Anne Creek from the bridge to the Elliott's property is public access, and CAMA, awarded the town a grant for that, and it will be great to see that improved area. It will be so much safer.
Shut down across from Elliott's.
To the bridge. Yep.
Okay. We need a motion and a second to award this bid.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions? All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Okay. It's been awarded. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Corey.
All right, you're welcome.
And boss lady. Thank you. Oh, Anne Marie. Next on the agenda, resolution authorizing upset bid process for sale of 133 East Gale Street. Anne Marie and Elizabeth?
Yes. Elizabeth, hey Elizabeth. So
Okay, I'm here.
great. Hey Elizabeth, so we're just presenting the resolution for the council to consider authorizing the upset bid price. And today, Elizabeth and I, we didn't talk, we texted, we communicated via text and email, and we're just a little bit concerned because the bid that was submitted is extremely low. Elizabeth noted that the house, the property 133 East Gale, the house is in poor condition. However, the appraisal that was done in 2019 valued it at $29,000, and that's what the town spent to purchase it, to acquire it. And we have received a bid for $9,200. So Elizabeth and I reviewed the appraisal. We went online and looked at the tax value, and the tax value of the land, and that's a 2014 value, was about $16,000. So we're concerned about you moving forward authorizing the upset bid process at $9,200. And I think that, your options are to say, hey, we want to get this house back on the tax books. You've got somebody that's willing to invest in a lot of money to restore it. Or, do you want to reject this bid and set a minimum? And I think that's kind of where we at. What do you think, Elizabeth?
I agree. We do have several interested parties in the property right now, so you should know that. Also, the house is a large house. It's at least 4 bedrooms. You could probably make another bedroom for 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and the lot is about a lot and a half typical size, or a little bit bigger than typical size for that street. So just those are some things to take into account as well.
the house will need a complete overhaul. Every single mechanical system, electric, plumbing, as well as cosmetic, new roof, etc.
Do you feel these other people would possibly bid the appraised value or more?
I don't think they're going to bid appraised value, but I certainly think we can reach back out and talk and let them know that the council's concerned about the low bid and try to feel them out to see if land value would interest them, so.
I've got mixed emotions about it because I'm always a big fan of getting a house fixed up and also getting it back on the tax rolls. And I'm just wondering out loud, will the market take care of itself if that's a really low bid and there are other interested parties? I mean, it's a gamble we would have to take, but I would be surprised if this is a final bid. You know, I don't know. And then my next comment is more of a question. Do the documents, the legal documents, allow us to reject any bid after the initial bid, or do we only have the right to reject the initial bid? Does anyone know?
The way that I read the resolution is that you can reject any bid at any time. So,
Is this a young family coming into town, willing to put money into the property, raise a family here?
well, I don't know what their family intentions are. It's a couple that they are planning to be married and they want to move here.
I got mixed emotions.
Can I speak since I'm sitting here?
Sure.
If the town paid $29,000 for the property, and you're only going to sell it for $9,200, that's almost $20,000 loss for the town. Me personally, I would like to see it go back into the market and see can't we get a little closer to that. Even though you're talking about a family coming in, that's a lot of money that we're gonna have to eat.
Yeah. Well, if we have that out, if we can verify we have that out, that we can reject any bid at any time, I would feel better about us
Rejected.
testing the market.
I think that's smart.
Okay.
And this is a special meeting agenda item, so we do have authority to vote on it. It's not like the committee meetings, but can we get more information on that maybe, or?
You can table it. You can table it to your August 11th meeting, and we'll verify with the town attorney.
And maybe we can get it up a little bit. The other thing that, I mean, once these houses start getting fixed up, everything in the whole, we get more tax out of the whole street, that's because everything's going to be more valuable. And this is really, I think, the beginning of something great.
Yeah. Should we make?
Is this the brick house? Which house? Brick house? That's a classic house.
Can we?
That's what?
The brick house is a classic looking house.
Yeah, it's
I know it needs a lot of work,
yeah.
but it's certainly worth it. If it's
Can we
worth
table?
the land.
Can we table this? Be okay to table this till the next meeting?
You want to make a motion
Make a
to
motion
table?
to table this issue until our August 11th.
Second.
You second? We've had a motion and a second to table this discussion. All those in favor say yay? No?
Yeah.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be tabled until next meeting, okay? All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Anne Marie. Whew. Okay. The last item is a revision on the number 1 to the grant agreement for Colony Tire Building Reuse Grant. Anne Marie, you again?
Yes, Mayor, we were getting ready to process reimbursement for Colony Tire as part of the grant, and it was discovered that there was an error in the grant documents. When we were putting together the project, initially the baseline number of jobs that Colony put down in a preliminary application was 525 jobs, and that was the total number of employees that Colony employs in Virginia and in North Carolina. And during the vetting process, Department of Commerce told us that no, that they are only, their baseline should be North Carolina jobs. And so our application that was submitted and approved had a baseline of 376 jobs. And so Colony pledged to create 40 new jobs, and the way those new jobs are calculated is based on the baseline number of when the grant was approved, and that was 376. The documents, and I am sorry that I didn't catch it, Colony didn't catch it when they were executing the grant agreements, the state didn't catch it when they were preparing the documents, had a baseline number of 525. And so we immediately wrote to the state and explained, what we thought went wrong, documented it, and they agreed and said, unfortunately, the council is going to have to approve a whole new set of documents, and Colony will have to execute the new documents. So we're asking for you to approve what is called revision number 1 to the grant agreement. Prior to COVID, Colony had created, I think, 32 of the required new jobs. But when the stay-home order was issued, they saw, of course, as all businesses, a dramatic decrease in their business, and they ended up laying off a number of people. My understanding is now that they have, they're back above the 376, and they, as of like a month ago when we found this problem, had created about 6 or 7 of the jobs that they're required. So they have until October of 2021 to fulfill or create all the jobs. And we've put the state on notice that because of COVID, Colony may need an extension. And the state told us to, check in with them later on that. So we're asking tonight for you to approve revision number 1 to the grant agreement for the Colony Tire Building Reuse Grant.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? The motion is carried. Okay.
Mayor, I do have one question, sort of related to this. Are there other building reuse grant programs that will need an extension?
Our only other, we have 2 active building reuse grants. We have Daedalus, and they will likely need an extension if they cannot meet a milestone this fall. And then Nebraska Plastics is our 3rd building reuse grant that's active, and I visited with them last week. Mr. Gurman was in town, who you all met, the CEO from Nebraska, and they have hired more people, and they have more people working. I think they have 24 employees working, and they were required to create 22 jobs. So I said, hey, let's go ahead and get the paperwork going and try and get you certified from the state and close out this grant. So it looks like Nebraska will not need an extension.
Henry, is there a limit on the number of extensions these companies can have? I don't know.
In the past, the state's position has always been they want the companies to succeed. And this certainly is an extraordinary time. So I feel like they're going to work with the companies.
Any more questions? At this time, this will conclude the special meeting. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn the special meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussions? All those that are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. And now we go into our committee meeting. Administrative Committee. Councilman Hyde.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Bond. The Administrative Committee has 5 agenda items to review tonight, the first 3 of which relate to the airport. The first is the town has been awarded a $311,000 grant from the North Carolina Division of Aviation, and periodically the FAA requires all general aviation airports to update their airport layout plan, and each time they come out with the requirements, they seem to be more comprehensive, and the more comprehensive they get, the more expensive it gets. But our aviation engineer, Jay Talbert, is here with us by Zoom tonight, and he's going to give us an overview of the aviation layout plan project and talk to us more about the grant itself. Anne-Marie, I don't know if you had anything to add to that. And if not, if Jay can hear us, Jay, we'll just hand it over to you to talk to us about this plan.
Okay, anything, Anne-Marie?
It's all yours, Jay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's my pleasure to be meeting with y'all this evening, and I hope everyone's enduring the coronavirus as well as can be expected. Our venture down the road of the airport layout plan update started some time back when the Federal Aviation Administration changed the office that we typically work with from Atlanta to Memphis, Tennessee. The Atlanta office has had the position that planning documents for airports, particularly general aviation airports like Northeastern Regional, were not terribly important, and since that money did not go towards brick and mortar or asphalt pavement, runway extensions or strengthening, wasn't as important. And then after we got moved to the Memphis Airport District Office, they took an entirely different position on it and said that airports in North Carolina don't follow the FAA's directives. It said that general aviation airports should update their planning documents, and in our case, airport layout plan and narrative. The general aviation every 10 years, and air carrier airports like Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, and Wilmington, etc., which should do it every 5 years. So the last update that was done for Northeastern Regional was the drawing portion of your airport layout plan package was updated in 2007 in concert and with assistance from the North Carolina Division of Aviation, and those are very outdated. One thing I'm intended to start out with this comment through the good efforts of your town manager's office, and we helped a little bit. On all the projects we will talk about tonight, we are in the somewhat unique position of having 100% grants offered to us to work on this project and the next project we'll talk about. So with that, would anyone care for me to go through in more detail what an airport layout plan update and drawing package is? It's a pretty specific outline in a FAA design document called an advisory circular. I would be ready to do that if there's questions about that.
Does anyone have any questions about the particulars of the plan? Jay, I think we're fine on that. I appreciate it.
Okay.
as was mentioned earlier, it's a very specific document and technical document, and the criteria is more extensive than ever now. The FAA requires what's called an 18B or 18 Bravo aerial survey, which is quite valuable to the airport as far as identifying any obstructions in the approach to either end of runway 119 at the airport, and that is all translated into GIS information and loaded onto websites by the FAA, but it is quite expensive. The cost of this grant was approved by the North Carolina Division of Aviation and is $311,922, and again, 100% of that is being paid for by 90% is by a federal state apportionment grant, and the other 10% by the North Carolina Division of Aviation.
And what the committee is recommending, I believe, unless y'all disagree, is that we move this forward for approval by council at the August 11th regular council meeting. Is everybody good with that? Okay. As I mentioned, the first three items do relate to the airport. The second item is the North Carolina Division of Aviation has approved the work authorization for Talbot and Bright to begin the work needed to complete the airport layout plan. The work authorization was included in our packet for our review and consideration, and we are likewise just asking that the Administrative Committee recommend the work authorization for approval at our August 11th council meeting. Is everybody good with that also?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move that forward for hopeful approval on August 11th. The final item related to the airport is the airport has a previously awarded grant from the North Carolina Division of Aviation for the final design of the parallel taxiway for Airport Runway 1-9. This phase includes preparing bid documents and engineering design for the construction of the parallel taxiway. Like the earlier grant, this one does not involve any local money, does not involve or require any local cash match required. The work for this particular phase is going to cost $97,248 plus a $1,900 allowance for permitting fees and advertisement for the bid specifications. Jay, is there anything that you would like to add to that particular agenda item?
Just a couple of very minor comments. The Northeast Regional Airport is very fortunate for an airport of its size to have a land-based full instrument landing system there, which is operated and maintained by the Federal Aviation Administration. That's a real asset to go along with. We are one of the few general aviation airports of our size to have a fully functional 6,000-foot runway. Some of you may say, I think there's some type of taxiway out there. The federal regulations state that for a precision instrument approach, that the parallel runway should go to the full ends of the runway, and that does not happen now. The parallel taxiway stops short of those two ends, and this project will remedy that situation and have a full 6,000-foot parallel taxiway to go with your precision instrument approach. And the estimated cost for those items are right at $1.9 million construction cost.
Thank you, Jay. And Anne-Marie, do we need to approve this or just recommend approval and move it to August 11th like the other items?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have the concurrence of the Administrative Committee to do so?
Sure.
Okay. Ms. Knighton, if you'll just place that on August 11th, and hopefully we'll take care of that. The fourth item that is on our committee's agenda tonight is the amendment to the docking agreement that we have with Captain Mark and Liberty. He has a lot of great plans for his business and for the town of Edenton.
Goodbye to Jay.
What's that?
Can we say goodbye to Jay? Thank Jay.
Yes, Jay? You don't, thank Anne Marie, I forgot all about inviting you to leave if you would like, but that concludes all the business that we have regarding the airport. You're more than welcome to stick around, but we certainly understand if we all of a sudden see a black screen by your name.
Thank you very much. I think my dog is ready for supper back in the house.
I understand. Thank you, and thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
But as Anne Marie had indicated in our agenda packet, Captain Mark, as he's known, has become quite the ambassador for Edenton. We hear so many people sing his praises, and he's going to come before us tonight and explain some of the changes and amendments that he's requesting and the reasons for that. So, Anne Marie, if you didn't have anything to add, just invite Captain Mark to come to the podium and talk to us about the recommended amendments you have to the existing docking agreement.
Thank you, Hack, and thank you all for entertaining my presence here tonight. Together with Teresa, my wife, we own and operate Edenton Bay Cruises. We have been operating that for the last 7 seasons. This would have been our 7th season. We've been unable to operate due to the virus. Our intentions now are to reopen as soon as the governor declares phase 3. We think those criterias are worth the risk, not only to ourselves, but our guests as well, because our tourists come from all over. And so we really don't have a pedigree on where they've been or legacy. Anyways, the purpose for my visit tonight is to present for your consideration an addendum to our current docking agreement, amending our finger pier assignment, as well as appropriate modifications to the existing term of our lease. We've been doing a lot of business soul searching, so to speak, as to how this virus has impacted us, and also our grandchildren are returning after 5 years in Japan. They're going to be back up the road. And so what our vision for the future of Edenton Bay Cruises, and we've decided the best course of action in the face of these difficult times is to look forward to the future and aggressively expand the tour business with a great deal of optimism. We're confident that the concept, properly marketed, can succeed even during the difficult months ahead, and ultimately would flourish as we move through the crisis and return to a semblance of normal. After 2 years searching for the correct boat, we've been everywhere from Maryland to Northern Virginia to 2 trips to New Jersey, finding it's difficult to meet the criteria that we need, not only for the business, but also to meet the Coast Guard's good graces and regulations. And so it's been a long search, but we think we found her. She's a 1935 classic Elko Cruisette. She has this great Gadsby period style and ambiance and uniqueness in touring experience comparable to Liberty. We simply did not want to just replicate Liberty. That certainly our main motivator was to extend the number of tours we can do during the day. But in this approach with the Elko Cruisette, it actually gives us greater opportunities to expand the services we're able to offer, as well as the range for our tours and etc. There is a photo, I don't know, did we pass out the packets? In the back, there's a reasonable photograph of what the boat looks like. We're currently in the final stages of a very intense survey to ensure the boat is sound. That's primarily to satisfy my insurance company. Once those two, the insurance company gives us the green light, we'll have a closing on the boat. We're hiring professionals to transport her here overland, and we're targeting, it looks like now the 15th through the 21st of August she'll arrive on the waterfront. And so that's why we're here kind of presenting this to you all, so perhaps it can be considered to be put on the August 11th meeting for conclusion. As I mentioned, she will add a great deal of flexibility in what kind of services we can offer to the public and activities, as well as it's an opportunity now that would warrant hiring relief captains, so that in the high demand times we can simultaneously operate both boats, both Liberty and what is going to be rechristened to Lady Edenton will be her new name. And this is all consistent with a number of initiatives on the waterfront to address and bring waterfront activities and the popularity of our waterfront colonial park and to enhance even further our reputation as a waterfront destination. And we think this will add greatly to that. What we're specifically asking is that you consider amending our current 5-year docking agreement to accommodate bringing Lady Edenton to the waterfront for commercial maritime operations. Currently, you're probably aware, we list slip 1 year-round, and portions of the bulkhead in front of the Barker House and then around the corner 25 feet. And that's a lease that Anne Marie and I revisit every year when I pay our annual lease fee, and we will continue that at that level for the duration of the lease. What we're looking at is we bring Lady Edenton here. We're not going to have much of a season, if any, this year, and we're asking that we be forgiven an additional fee for Lady Edenton's second slip, which would be next door adjacent to Liberty, to give us the opportunity to get through the rough times and also stand up that portion of the business and give us an opportunity to get on our feet with 2 boats. The impact of my taking up a second transient pier visitors slip, Anne Marie and I discussed the county boat, and as some of you may be aware, it's been auctioned and purchased by a private individual. And and correct me or add to what I'm saying if this doesn't present the correct picture, but we're anticipating in the near term that the county boat will be moved into a new home port. So although Lady Edenton takes up an additional slip 9 will in the near term be freed up for transient boaters. So it's a break even. And that pretty much states it adequately.
It was purchased by someone who grew up in Edenton, and the plan was to move it to Wilmington where that person lives, but because of COVID they've not been able to move it, but the plan is to relocate.
Thanks. I didn't want to misrepresent that, but we do believe that there will be no impact on the number of boats, the visitors coming here. They'll find the slips they need, as they always have. The second item on the addendum request is to extend the bulkhead space. As I mentioned, we have on the north-south bulkhead directly in front of the Barker House, we have 50 feet assigned. That's where I load my passengers, and it gives me plenty of maneuvering room around visiting boats that come in for lunch or whatever. And then on the east-west, and this is also in the packet, there's a diagram or satellite photograph indicating in green what exists now under our lease and the 25-foot I would be asking for to extend as reserve space. Now, the impact that has is really only felt having that reserved for my operations is when we have the water festivals, the big events down on the park, and we've endeavored to work closely with Nancy and Windale to ensure that if we need to do something different than our standard operating procedures for a given event, that's what we do. Those events are more important for me simply because they give us such great exposure to a much broader audience. And so we look to do cooperative efforts to make sure everybody has the waterfront space that they need, regardless of my reservation under the lease. I'll wrap this up. There's two things that I think that really influence your understanding of what we're doing. We will continue to operate and comply with all U.S. Coast Guard rules and regulations, and also annual safety inspections. Although not required, we do that just in our own sense of self-preservation, as well as the insurance liability that I'm required to carry as a commercial vessel. That also originally named the town of Edenton as a beneficiary of that. If something was to happen, the town and Edenton Bay Cruises are protected by the insurance that I engage. That will be true equally for Lady Edenton. It will be the same levels as we agreed to, as well as the town will be named. And I believe that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I appreciate your time and welcome any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just thank you for all you do with the town, Captain Mark.
Well,
I didn't know you were quite the historian, too. You've got to go on his tour to really appreciate what he does here.
Well, I don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. That's what I tell my guests. Yes, sir.
Did you say this boat was made in 1935?
Yes, sir.
That's 85 years old.
Yes.
Is this a steel hull or wooden hull?
It's all wood, and that is the inspection she's going through now. The assessment from the surveyor was very positive. He expressed to me that this was the finest wooden boat of her age and era that he had inspected over his entire career. She's a very sound boat. There will be some things I will be doing immediately on her arrival in Edenton, and one of those is bottom painting and preserving, because we don't, those things don't get better by themselves, and there are some minor issues that will be addressed immediately.
Captain Mark, is this a mahogany?
Specifically, the hull is cedar plank, and the decks and cabin compartments are mahogany, yes, some teak. The nice thing about this boat, it's 10 foot longer than Liberty, which allows the stern is open area, open seating for 6. But then if we have inclement weather drop in on us. Forward of the open area space is a enclosed cabin with windows, screens, seating for 6. So it expands the ability to be out there also as a heavier wooden boat. Liberty doesn't, if you'll see white caps out on this immediate sound here, Liberty's in dock. She's not a heavy weather boat. This will be able to accommodate us to extend our days where Liberty wouldn't be going. She's more capable of that as well as range.
Okay, did I understand you saying that the town of Edenton would be responsible for the maintenance of it?
Oh, no.
And inspections?
No, that's all on me. What I was saying about the town is that my insurance provides by name in the insurance policy that the town is also protected to the same liability levels that I am. But all maintenance, all operations, all hirings or whatever, that's on me. In fact, when I originally proposed the business 7 years ago, it was offered that, well, perhaps my lease fee could be a portion of the ticket price. I rejected that. I appreciated it, but the idea of the maintaining sole independence of the operation of the business should be on me, and the town not having a direct interest in whether I'm out there or how the business is faring. So we kept that totally independent. Did that answer?
My last question, how many
Sure.
people would be authorized to be on there at the time?
Right now, it will be the same as Liberty's restrictions. It's near impossible to have a wooden boat, particularly of this era, approved by the Coast Guard for more than 6 passengers. I'm going to revisit that with the Coast Guard because their jurisdiction are the channels and navigational waterways, and I'm really not in those. I'm on the cusp of those. So I would like to see us be able to increase that passenger level on Liberty to perhaps 8, and on Lady Edenton to 10. Lady Edenton's built by the manufacturer specs for 17, but I wouldn't push it to that degree. And those numbers, I'm not optimistic the Coast Guard's going to go along with me. They're very conscious about commercial operations involving passengers, and they're slow to grant excessive numbers in their eyes. And any other questions?
No, not for me.
Well, they were good ones.
Thank you for all you do.
Well, as I always say, the town thanks me, but it's been a two-way street. You guys have embraced my and Teresa's vision, and we appreciate that. It's nice to be able to walk around and know the town's behind you.
You know, you love what you do. It just shows. Really.
Well, who wouldn't love a retirement gig like this? But
We're lucky to have you here.
well, thank you. And we look forward to a number of years going into the future and more boats. Thank you.
Well, Captain Mark, I'd like to join in thanking you with all of the council, and particularly for your decision to reinvest in us and our waterfront, particularly in such trying times where, it's tough economically out here. So I admire you for that, and thank you for that. And if there's no other questions or comments, I think we've got a consensus of the committee to move this forward to recommend approval at our August 11th meeting.
Wonderful. Appreciate that. Thank you all. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, the last item that we have on the administrative committee agenda is the technical assistance agreement with Visions, and that is with Dr. Valerie Batts. As everyone is well aware, it's been a goal of this council for some time now to establish something along the lines of a racial harmony committee or human relations committee. And the committee has already met with Dr. Batts, and she has put together a proposal with the idea that we would set up a committee of townsfolk and other interested people that may live in the county. And they will have a number of goals, and they will attempt to address a number of things, but primarily the committee's goals and tasks would involve bridging the racial gap in town, taking a look at how we handle racism in town, and to also make suggestions to improve racial harmony in town. The proposed agreement was included in our package. As I just said, this has been a goal for a while, even predated Councilman Coleman and I being on the council. And I would just recommend to the committee that we move this forward for consideration at the August 11th meeting also.
Okay?
Okay, does anybody have any comments on that particular agenda item?
You did a good job.
Okay. Well, Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes our committee business.
Thank you, Councilman Hyde. Public Works Committee, chaired by Council Miller.
Mayor Pro Tem Vaughn, we have 3 items of business on the agenda tonight. The first being a presentation by, is Corey here? Corey and Brandon on the accomplishments of the internship program. So Corey and Brandon,
They're on their way.
come on in and give us an update. And by the way, if you see Tammy beaming with pride over there, that young, good-looking gentleman is her son. Go ahead, Corey.
I guess to get started, I wanted to start off by thanking Brandon for everything he's done to help us. He's had a really good year with us. This program actually started 2 years ago when we had a high school summer work study program, and from that program we usually would keep one student work home during their senior year. Brandon started with us this past summer, worked through the entire year, similar to our first year where we had a student do the same, and he's actually getting ready to, I guess, leave us in a couple of weeks to actually go to NC State, which I'm very proud of. A little partial to them, but anyways, he's done an outstanding job. He's had a really busy year. He's been able to balance his schoolwork as well as putting up with me, so that's quite impressive. But anyways, it's all his.
Thank you, Corey.
He can teach us what to do.
All right. Good evening, council members. My name is Brandon Woodley, and I've been an intern here at the town of Edenton for a little over a year now. Today I'm going to tell you about some of the projects that I've worked on and what I've learned from this entire experience. So the first task that I was assigned when I first came to the town was I had to clean up and put in place an inventory system for the water and sewer warehouse. So what I did was I broke all of the items in the warehouse down into 8 different sections. I assigned each of these items a new part number and put that into the fishbowl system, which there's a screenshot of right there. And I worked with Bud Powell to find the vendors, vendor part numbers, prices for all of these items. And this inventory is kept up monthly by either me or somebody in the water and sewer team. We go in and do a manual count, and I update it on the computer, and this allows us to print out different reports. I can print out a valuation report, and this valuation report for this recent month was used in the audit recently. And here to the left is a completed section that I have set up. The second task that I worked on was map organization. I categorized all the Public Works maps, and I created a Excel sheet that has all of them listed. And I broke all these maps down based off of, it'll let me click to the next slide. Yeah. Here's an explanation of how I broke it down. I broke it down based off of these zones, zone 10 through 60, 60 being outside of town limits. And I broke them down further by doing these decimal points here on the side. And you can't see it because of whatever that is, but it basically breaks it down into water, sewer, stormwater, building plans, basically whatever you could need. Next one. The next thing I worked on was updating the safety room. We completely revamped this room to become more of a meeting space. We put in a computer workstation for all the employees to come in and do their utility cloud work orders on. We put in a TV, a small computer, and a phone to allow us to do supervisor meetings, and if any of the supervisors want to do some type of training, they can go in there, sit down with their team, and do that. And this also houses the maps that I was talking about earlier. They're right in here. So if they ever need a map, they just go in there, grab it, they can lay it out, get what they need, and get back on the job. And one of the biggest things that I worked on was utility cloud. I helped set up a majority of the stuff and implement it into the daily work process. And this also came along with the iPads that were recently purchased that we distributed to some of the employees and the supervisors. Some of the things that I worked on while I was messing with utility cloud was I set up schematics, which you can see here on the left and over here to the right. And what these schematics do is basically it takes these bigger assets like a pump station or the water treatment plant and breaks it down into smaller parts. So if I were to be on utility cloud and I went to this pump station, I would see this, and I don't know if y'all can see, but there's little markers on it. And if I were to click on one of those, it would take me into the wet well of the pump station, and I have assets in there for each individual float and pump in the pump station. So this allows you to assign a work order directly to that piece of the pump station instead of the pump station the lift station as a whole. Next one. And some things that I've learned from my time working with the town, I learned a lot of different computer skills, like working with Excel, Fishbowl, and Utility Cloud. I learned the importance of inventory, organization, and management, keeping up with that. I learned how to work effectively with other employees, because I had to go out a lot with different members of different teams to take pictures or do things like that. I learned the importance of personnel management, trying to keep up with man hours and all the things that all the guys are doing every day. And I learned a lot about how the water and sewer system works because I dealt with that a lot more than anything else. And I learned how all the different sections of public works kind of come together to just make the town a better place. Thank you for listening. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Any questions? Brandon?
Yeah.
Any questions for Brandon?
No.
Brandon, can you tell us what you are interested in studying or learning at state? Any of the things that you did here kind of open your eyes to possibilities?
Well, I'm going to NC State and I'm majoring in bioprocessing, and Corey has a background in chemistry, so we've talked a lot in the office about different things, and it kind of led me on that sort of path. So yeah, I guess he kind of contributed to that.
Are you going into your second year in state or third?
I got an associate's at College of the Albemarle while I was still in high school.
Okay.
So I have a lot of my credits still fulfilled, so I will be getting a little bit of a jump on my college education.
I know Corey's going to miss you. Any more questions for Brandon? Brandon, thank you for all your hard work. We really appreciate it. Awesome job. And great leadership.
Congratulations, young man.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we get a picture of you and your mom and Corey socially distant by the podium? Excuse me, real quick.
Mayor Pro Tem, there's no action needed on this.
Corey, you can
No,
look.
no.
Thank you.
And just one thing to kind of add on the back end of this is as a whole, Public Works would really like to continue this program. And each year, we're really challenged by each student has a different skill set. Each individual student has something in particular that they're interested in that we should give back to. Within our first year, we had an individual that was more hands-on, that was going to be really in the field, really wanted to get his hands dirty and really work. And we had a really good story with him last year. Pacey Laster, he was one of our first interns that came from our high school summer program. And whereas Brandon come in from with a different skill set, more of a technical background, very savvy with computer skills, things that we could really benefit from to help us with an organizational and IT standpoint. So we try to groom this program to cater to that, to what the students' needs are. This program is beneficial, and we really would like to continue working with high school seniors that are either a dual enrollment type program where they have a lot of free time as far as not physically being at the school. And one of the silver linings I think that we could have this year with some of the distance education that we're seeing with the school systems is that we may have a better opportunity to actually get a student who would be at home anyway, working on schoolwork. And we've tried to balance that out the past 2 years with both students. So we want to continue doing that, and hopefully within the next 30 to 45 days, maybe pick up a rising senior that we can continue this program on.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck to you. Second item of business tonight is the stormwater assessment proposal phase 2. Stormwater assessment proposal phase 2, as I understand, was originally budgeted and labeled a capital improvement. However, it's not a capital improvement, but an engineering study whose outcome will recommend a plan for capital improvements. I understand the Finance Committee will relabel the budget line item to read engineering study in lieu of capital improvements. So, Mayor Pro Tem, if it's all right with the committee, I would like to move this forward to council meeting on August 11th.
Okay.
Third item of business, engineering service agreement, water system capital assessment management grant. The town received a $150,000 grant from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to conduct a capital asset inventory and assessment of our water system. Stroud Engineering, who is knowledgeable of the water system, is working on plans for phase 2 of the water system upgrades, which includes new storage tanks at the Beaver Hill water plant and renovations to existing wells. So if it's all right with Public Works Committee, I'd like to move this forward to council our next meeting on August 11th.
Okay.
Good.
And that concludes the Public Works Committee agenda.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. We move to the last one, Finance Committee.
This won't be short. So I'm going to give you a test, see if you read that grant agreement on this rifle. It's the longest thing I've ever seen. Emery, you want to just give us a brief synopsis of that?
Sure, and I think...
Because I hope you did read it.
On the line, but you will recall the chief gave a presentation a while ago about a plan to replace old weapons with new weapons, and part of that plan included replacing the rifles, and Chief told me this morning that the grant will fund the purchase of 18 rifles, and they will replace rifles that the town acquired long time ago. He said they're like Vietnam era rifles. So we're grateful for the Governor's Crime Commission and the $21,000 that grant will bring to us, and ask that the council recommend approval.
Anybody have any strong feelings on that one, so we'll send that up. Then these budget amendments, I'm going to let you just
Okay, sure. We're excited to have a budget amendment showing the proceeds from the sale of 123 East Gale Street that you approved. So that money will be returned as revenue to the electric fund, and Virginia prepared that budget ordinance for you. And we are showing that money on the expense side in contingency, and that way, you know, that we cannot spend contingency. That has to be approved by the council. And so we just envision that money rolling back into the redevelopment fund to help you purchase more properties as we move through phase one. The second budget amendment is the small capital project for the airport layout plan, which you heard during the administrative committee. So that would set up that that capital budget. And
you'll just go ahead and do 3 and 4.
okay.
We'll just send it all, I think, at the same time.
And we're asking, this is kind of unique, to reclassify the budget line item. As Councilman Miller mentioned, we coded it for the stormwater assessment as a capital, and it really should be an engineering line item. So we're asking your permission for us to relabel that line item. And then the last one, thanks to all the great work that you saw that Brandon and Corey and his team have done on utility iCloud, that a lot of that work was going to be funded out of the grant that we received from the state to update and inventory and asset the water system. But we couldn't wait for the grant. It took a long time to get all the paperwork approved. And so we had money in the budget to pay for that work. And so that left additional funds available in the water capital asset grant. And so we're asking you to approve reallocation of those funds. It's just the first time ever, I think, we've had had a reallocation on the council agenda, but to have two, I guess it's a good thing. Got ahead of ourselves and had funds available, but anyway, we would recommend that you approve the reallocation of funds at your August 11th meeting.
So we move both of those forward, or actually all three
Okay,
forward.
okay. Thank you, sir.
That ends the Finance Committee.
All right, appreciate it. That concludes our committee meeting. Anyone have any questions or anything?
Just want to say you did a great job.
Great job. I agree.
Really good job.
Yeah, we must thank Anne Marie for the great job she
You
did.
did a great job.
She ran the show tonight. Thank you, boss lady. Thank all of you for participating. Everybody stay safe, and I hope you have a good week and a healthy week, okay? We can go.